Are you stuck in the same old routine at work? Do you find yourself hitting a creative wall, unable to see beyond your current perspective? It's time to break free and unlock the power of fresh perspectives. David Gouthro back again with Andrea Jacques as my guest. And, one of the questions that so first of all, let me say, welcome, Andrea.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So one of the things that I'm curious about, and I haven't asked anyone else this question, is what possessed you to want to get onto this podcast?
Actually, you know what? One, I've always thought very highly of you, and it's been years since we've connected. So that was kind of the impetus. But the other thing was really just the way that you approached it. I was smiling as I read it, and I thought, okay, here's a person who knows what he wants and what he doesn't want and is clearly stating it. And so I love the risk taking, and I love the saying like, hey, I don't need help with all this other stuff because I'm not into doing it perfectly. I'm just into leaping in and doing it. So so that was really what drew me to it. And it's kind of I really love the philosophy of Wabi-Sabi, which is a Japanese word which means seeing the beauty of natural imperfections, right? Embracing imperfect beauty. And so I wrote a book called Wabi-Sabi Wisdom as well. And so, so I love that. Whenever I see examples of it in the world of how to do it, and you just did it so well that I had to respond.
Well, thank you very much. And it triggers, different things are going to trigger different thoughts for me. So one of them is an article I wrote many years ago about being in the forest of La Hulpe. I was with a colleague. We were doing some work for IBM at their International Education Center over there. And the article I wrote was about the focus of our work over there was on quality. And I was walking through this forest, and there were branches that were bent like this. And it was just everything. Nothing was a perfect example of a tree. But everything that it was doing the best it could with the resources that it had available. And I just absolutely loved that. I didn't want it to be any way other than it was. Didn't have an expectation of the perfect forest. So it kind of sounds like the Wabi-Sabi. And am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wabi-Sabi. So
not to be confused with wasabi.
And it's something that I don't eat. So I'll try really hard not to confuse it with the two. So, Andrea, before we get into whatever you're passionate about today, maybe you could just say for our listeners, what's the nature of your work? What do you do?
Oh, okay. So I have my own company called Kyosei Consulting. As you can see, I'm into Japanese words. So Kyosei means living and working together for the good of all. Oh. And so the reason why I chose that as the name of my business, which is now 23 years running, is because it really represents our mission and our purpose and everything that I do. And so what I do is I do leadership training, employee training, and I do coaching, working with individuals to help to create workplaces and a world where everyone thrives. And so, I do basically training, coaching, and consulting.
Very cool. So, many people do that. And I want to dig into what's sort of special about your approach. And to narrow it down, there's many different ways to narrow it down. But one is, what drives you crazy when you see people doing something the opposite? What do you feel you have to rant about? What is it that you think that people don't get? And if they did get it, they'd probably be happier and more productive and be doing better good in the world. So, that's a whole lot. But, out of all of that, what do you do that you'd say is a special perspective that you hold?
Well, so a couple of questions. I think what drives me crazy in myself, probably, as well as in other people, which is why I do what I do in many ways, is I've started recently calling it pathological productivity. So this is sort of what I'm passionate about, part of what I'm passionate about right now. And I think that, what I'm trying to unlearn, that I also am working to help others unlearn, is this idea that, we need to have our to-do list, and we always need to be pushing forward as fast as we can, and we always need to be growing more. And I'm starting to stop and just go, why? Why do we need to do that? And that brings me to the other part of what I'm passionate about today. In particular, I've been working on this, is I have decided to shift my focus to open up more space in my business, away from doing a bunch of leadership training and working more with organizations, creating healthy workplaces, to focus in on mid-career women and leaders,
Mhm.
who are what I'm finding as I speak to them, because I'm in that age range where these are many of my friends and colleagues, who are struggling because they've hit that place, 40s into, like, early mid 40s to mid 50s, and they're really having that day of reckoning where they're good at what they do, and but they've kind of lost their mojo, right? They've kind of lost the, at one point they got into it, they're driven, ambitious women, they're successful by many accounts, but they're just not feeling it. They're either not feeling healthy, maybe they're feeling overloaded, or they're just not feeling fulfilled, but they kind of feel almost trapped in their own success, right? Because you're in your 50s, you're kind of thinking, is it too late to change? That kind of thing. And I really feel like those women in particular, but I think many people find themselves there in sort of mid-career, is that they've been doing something for so many years. They've climbed the corporate ladder, they've had their success, and it's kind of scary to think about making a change in your late 40s and early 50s. But at the same time, they're going, do I really want to be doing this? Like, is this all there is for the last 8, 10, 15 years of my career? And then what am I going to be doing after that? So that's what I'm really passionate about right now, because I think women are particularly distracted and divided and depleted. And you're a man, so I can't. That's my lived experience. I'm sure men are they're having it similarly, but I really see what's happening for women.
Well, I don't necessarily know that men are doing that. I can't say how it's different from for men and women, because obviously I only have one perspective on that. But
Mhm.
what would you hypothesize? What's some of the differences between what a woman is experiencing in that age, and well, let's say what's unique about, I won't say compare it to men, but what do you think is unique about women that are in that particular age range and then sort of mid-career sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on whether you're looking at in your 40s or 50s, kind of, because it will depend on whether they're dealing with kids still, if they have kids, or whether they're dealing with aging parents. So usually they're dealing with children and aging parents. There is, and again, this is maybe a bit stereotypical, but there is research out there to show that women do take on, more of the responsibilities, particularly for aging parents, right? And so I hear a lot of that. So that's
Mhm,
something
mhm,
unique. Also, research shows that in the workplace, what women at that particular age are encountering is they really are starting to come into their own, and they know how damn good they are, right?
mhm.
They know finally, because up until that point, there is more self-doubt, right? More lack of confidence. Again, it's all backed by research. Um, and they're coming into their own, and they're saying, hey, and I've experienced this myself. When I hit 50, I started to go, oh, I'm pretty good at, like, I started to be able to say I'm pretty good at what I do, right? And before that, there was always, it's still there's a bit, but there was always this not good enough. And so they're in this organization, they're in, they have a certain amount of maybe status, they've achieved a lot in their careers in particular, but they still feel not listened to. They still feel, like there is that lack of respect, that there is that lack of freedom, and they're kind of tired of putting up with it, right? And they're also overloaded. So this is the other thing that I think happens, that women, again, research based, tend to take on more of that mental load at home as well. But the emotional load, they do a lot more of that emotional work at home, the mental load, but they also take on more of the emotional load at work because they're trained to. So they're dealing with, it's a heavier load, and they kind of want to let go of it. So anyway, that's a lot, but yeah, I'll let you ask another question.
So yeah, I've got 23 more questions. I
Yeah.
don't actually, but so I would imagine that part of it is normalizing it. Say you're not weird, You're not like there's other people that are in the same boat, right? They're
Yeah.
experiencing the same sort of things. There's nothing wrong with it. It's perfectly
Hmm.
normal going through what you're going through. So what
Hmm.
how do you help them be okay with that or move through that besides normalizing it?
Yeah, I think part of it is normalizing it, and part of that is giving them a framework. So, a person I was talking to yesterday, who I'm hopefully going to be working with, she was saying, I still want to know who I want to be when I grow up,
Hmm.
right? And I wish someone. This was very interesting to me. She said, "I wish someone could just tell me what I'm good at
Hmm.
and offer me something else other than what I'm doing that would fit what I'm good at, right?" And so the process that I take people through is, and this is my core work of 30 years now, which is hard to imagine that I've been doing something for 30 years. My background is in career development way back 30 years ago. And so what I do is I take them through this whole process of first getting clarity for themselves on that core elements of who they are, their purpose and their vision and their strengths and their values, and help them to unpack what's fitting and what's not fitting for them in their current work environment. And then start to look at what some possibilities could be for the future for other options that could fit with them. And everybody's process is very different. For some people, they end up saying, yeah, you know what, I realize that where I'm at currently isn't a fit and I want to find somewhere else. And, then we work together to find a plan and to find a new place for them to go, to come up with some concrete options. But for other people, sometimes what they realize is that it's maybe just a tweak that needs to happen. Another client of mine realized that they loved more of the analytical part of their job as opposed to the people management part of their job. They like to do the
Mhm.
research part. And so they ended up having a conversation with their supervisor and got their role shifted so that they're able to do less of the people management and more of the analytical part. I've had other clients where it's the opposite. And I've also had clients who kind of go, oh, you know what? It's my attitude. It's my stress. In fact, I claim this one also as my own because that's what I find for myself when I'm bordering on burnout, pushing myself too hard, when I'm not enjoying my work anymore, and I am doing what I love. I've built a whole business around it. It's what's going on in my mind, right? It's the not good enough. It's the not doing enough. It's the fear of, oh, am I making the right decision piece.
So I want to go back to something that that you said a little bit earlier, which was along the lines of, wouldn't it be nice would someone just tell me how good I am?
Mm.
And I think one of the issues that I've seen with that is that it's not don't necessarily trust who's telling you that you're good. And two examples come to mind. And one was, and I won't mention which company it was because it would likely identify this person, but she was very, very good at her job. Like she was amazing, but she was always looking for feedback. How am I doing? How am I doing? How am I doing? Oh, you're just saying that. Right. And I don't know that she ever had someone that she paid attention to that said she was really good. At some point, somehow she moved through that and
Mm.
started to trust that he was good, she was good. And there's another colleague of mine who's quite a bit younger than I am, who is amazing. She is so good on video. She like I could never do what she does, right? And I keep telling her how good she is and being specific about what it is. But how do you get someone to believe that they're good when someone says it, not just thinking, well, it's just BS. Like my daughter's the same way, right? She's amazing at what she does. She's 23 years old. And I can tell her what I like. I'm so proud of her. She does so many things right. So many things right. And oh, you just saying that because you have to, because you're my parent. And it drives me crazy. So, how do you get someone to find someone that they believe and they trust? There's no hidden agenda. This person sees the good in them, the great in them. And how do you get them to believe that? So I'm
Mhm.
obviously asking for myself here.
Yeah, well, and I think part of that comes from the process of starting to understand who you are and unpack these different elements. And not only who you are, but to, as you start to understand that, then you can start to decide who you want to be. I think part of it comes with age, but it also comes from we are not taught in school, and I know you do a lot of work in this area as well, but we are not really taught in school how to look at what we value and how to understand, when something isn't feeling right, when things are feeling out of integrity in our life, to pinpoint a value that is causing that energy drain because of that misalignment, and to do something about it to correct it, right? We're not taught to look at our strengths. We're only taught to look at, it links to the pathological productivity thing. We're only taught to look at our output. We are not taught that you are intrinsically valuable just as you are. We're only taught, it's very kind of this, industrial age mindset, right? This output of you got to be producing, you got to be growing. And so we're constantly evaluating ourselves against this. We can never achieve. There's always more to achieve. So we always feel less. So it's about learning to value yourself for who you are. And so again, there's a process for it. It's really not rocket science. It's the wisdom of the sages of the ages, right? If you listen to all the sages of the ages, they're talking about these same things. It's why, organizations, culture is so important. You're looking at those same things: value, strengths, purpose, vision. It's the same for an individual. And when you learn to pinpoint that for yourself, your confidence comes in there. As I work with people, they're repeating these same things, and eventually they start to hear themselves, oh, I am good at that. And then the other piece, I think, is this unconscious competence, right? And we all have that. We're so good at what we do that we don't think it's special. I remember way back, this is like almost 20 years ago now, I was facilitating, I used to call it the Life Path Workshop. Now I call it the Life Work Integrity Coaching Program. And so I was facilitating this, and I had a person come up to me afterwards and just go, whoa, you are just so masterful the way you got everybody involved and, asked the right questions and, keep people who talk too much from talking too much and all of that kind of thing. And I just kind of went, I didn't even get it. I just went, oh, well, whatever. That's nothing. Right. And so, you just don't realize what makes you special.
Well, I think sometimes I'm just thinking about, again, I'm reflecting myself for all these things we're talking about, is that sometimes the easier it is, the less likely we are to see it as special. Like I've been facilitating for a long time. I don't know if you can read what's on my shirt here.
Life begins at 65.
Right. And this sweatshirt is 7 years old. So, right. So I just, I don't even think about it. It's so easy. How could someone else value that? Because it appears so easy. And the longer you've been doing something that's easy, I think the tougher it is to see the value in it. And now I have to give my daughter credit. I know that she'll never listen to this podcast because it's mine. I could guarantee it. So I'll use her as an example where she is very smart and incredibly competent, and she's worked in retail in a number of different areas. She's super smart, loves to learn, hates to be taught, and does not suffer fools well, right? Right, and so she moved into a position of being regional manager for a local retail chain, and they were doing some shuffling around, and they offered her an opportunity to become, I think, to look after community engagement, even though they didn't know what it was. They said, yes, you can do this. And then in between, when the other stores need someone to fill in on retail, then we'll just ask you to go and do that. She said, nope, not going to do it. Done that before. You'll have to fire me. Because she knew what she was good at, and she was very clear in what she didn't want to do. And then, when it's kind of tough to get a job, to say that, I thought that took a lot of guts. Absolutely. She doesn't see that at all. Right. We are so proud of her for taking a stand on what she wanted to do. And she has a vision of what she wants to do as an artist and things like that. It's a tough road that she's going to be hoeing, but she's choosing it. Now, I think, and maybe it's different for the different generations. I can't remember what they're all, Z, Y, X, P, T, Q, whatever. But, maybe the longer we do something that we're successful at, the harder it is to see our brilliance when other people see in us. And you don't want to let go of that, right? But,
Yeah, I mean, I think a little bit too. It's just growing up, getting older. I remember earlier in my career, I did stuff like, walked into this big bank and said, "Hey, you need me to look after your values alignment stuff." And this was 20 some years ago. And I look now and I think, oh my goodness, like how, I mean, and I went in and they paid me and, all of that kind of stuff. And yet now I almost, I've been working on this a lot, but I realized this probably about 5 years ago. I realized maybe more than that. Time flies. Maybe probably closer to 10. But I realized that I was shrinking back from things because as I got more experienced, I became more aware of, like you were one of the people that kind of, I would compare myself. Well, but David Gouthro is doing all of this, and Lance Secretan, and I mean, I don't tend to compare myself so much to, Lance Secretan, who I just think, 24 books and all of that kind of thing. But I look at people in my circle who I know, like yourself, and I just think, whoa, I'm not that good, or I would more. Like 10 years ago, I used to think, oh, there's so much I don't know. Like, and there's always the problem with that. And this is where the confidence and the self-esteem and the taking recognition comes in, is that you and I are different. I'm better at some things than you are. You're better at some things than I am, which comes back to this imperfection, right? I am really great. The reason why I can be great at facilitating is because to me, it's all gray. There's no right or wrong, right? And that makes me really good at facilitating, and it makes me really good at coaching. Don't ask me to buy a piece of equipment to do something where I have to research and like black and white. My husband and business partner, he is black and white. He is good. He does all the research. He looks into every detail, makes a decision. Yes, this was the right one. Me, and then you say, well, what about this? He hates that, right? Drives him crazy that I'll come in and reevaluate decisions. Well, thank goodness we have each other, right?
mm-hmm.
And so I think that's part of it, is we look at what we don't have. What's his name? Is it the entrepreneur? He's a very well-known entrepreneur coach, strategic coach guy.
Oh, Dan Sullivan.
Dan Sullivan, he talks about the gaps and the gains, right? Focus on the gaps and the gains. And so I think it's a common disease, probably men and women, is we tend to focus on our gaps when we see other people that have things that we don't, but we don't look at what the gains are. And that's part of it. It's a mindset shift. It's a practice that, as we start to slow down to speed up and be more conscious of who we are and what we want, and systematically look at what is right about us as opposed to what is wrong about us, we gain that confidence.
So, I mean, Dan Sullivan and strategic coach work is really good, but I'd say I'd say the general principle is, or the problem is, that we don't slow down to stop and think and reflect, because we're always busy doing something.
Yes.
And if we were to stop and ask ourselves a question and think about it and take time to do that without rushing on to the next thing, how much better off we would be, right? I don't have time to think. I've got to get work done, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's why I think coaching as a profession is just really exploding, because it's like if I take someone by the shoulders, go, okay, we're going to reflect. We're going to think. I'm going to ask you those questions that you maybe didn't think of, or that you kind of thought of, but you said, I don't want to think about it. Right? It's that reflection time that is so valuable.
And sometimes it's painful, and we don't go into it because I'm projecting here, we're afraid of what the answer might be.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Instead of finding out what the answer might be and embrace it and then decide what to do with it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that, that's kind of when my own life, but also working with clients, I say, okay, what's the thing that you're afraid of? Well, it might be, I'm afraid that it means that, I've got to get a divorce, that I've got to quit my job, that I'll never be happy, that, whatever. Okay. So, let's look at this. So, worst case scenario for you right now is you've got to quit your job. Okay. So Are you going to do that right now? No. Well, so it's one of the many possibilities of us going into this work. And I deal with this, right? Because people, they might be saying, oh, I don't have enough money, or, oh, I don't have enough time, or whatever. But it's really because they're afraid of this thing that they know that if they dig in, they might need to change something that they don't want to change.
I think it was Albert Ellis, psychologist, who said what we tend to do is awfulize. So we
Mm,
take something and take it to the worst extreme. So if we do this, I'm going to lose my job. If I lose my job, I'm going to lose my family. I'm not going to be able to eat. I'm going to die. And emotionally, it feels like we're going to die, even though we haven't gone through the sequence to challenge all those different assumptions about that. It's
yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, yeah, and even I've started doing this weirdly for myself, where I awfulize, but I go, okay, yeah, this horrible thing could happen, and I just go, yeah, it could. Okay, well, is it going to happen tomorrow? Is it happening right now? Well, yeah, no, we're still a ways away. So then I just go, thanks for sharing, put it off to the side, focus on what it is that I am working on, that I want to do, my next, if I'm launching a course, it's not going to launch. Nobody's going to sign up for my coaching, I'm not qualified to deal with this market, whatever, all kinds of crazy stuff.
I think one of the worst feelings is feeling paralyzed. There's nothing I can do. And a business partner of mine from Ontario said that he just read a book, name of which I can't remember, but it was along the lines of, when you're really stuck, ask yourself, what's one action I can take that won't make things worse?
Mm,
And I think that's a fabulous question for at least starting to get in motion. Once you're in motion, you can
hmm.
change the direction, but it's so hard to start in the right direction right
Yeah.
off the bat.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of analysis paralysis, what I notice in the coaching side, but also in the business side, is you don't have an awareness of the foundations, right? So if I look at an individual client, if they don't have an awareness of those core passions that I call the front wheel of the bicycle, you can see my little bicycles in the background.
Mhm.
They don't have a point of reference for making decisions. It's the same with an organization's culture, right? If you don't have an awareness of that, you don't have a point of reference for making decisions. And so that analysis paralysis, one of the best ways to get you out of that is to refer back to those foundations. But most people don't know them, right? I don't know. I'd be curious if there's a statistic on how many people actually are aware of their values, their purpose, their vision, their strengths, and really use those as guideposts to their actions and decisions on a daily basis. I mean, it's a
I,
habit, it's a practice.
I know that my academic degree in earth science has served me well. I tell people I majored in residence and minored in earth science. So, without causing you to lose business here, Andrea, what are our three questions or two questions that you'd recommend that one of your potential clients should be asking themselves, regardless of where they are on that scale? Things that would really help them if they were to stop and reflect on these questions.
Well, I think the first question is really just about taking an honest assessment with where you're at, right? So, am I happy?
Hmm.
How many more years do I have left in work? So, particular if we're looking at work, but also in life, right? Maybe you're happy in your work, but not in your life. Am I happy? And actually, I changed that. I wouldn't even say am I happy. I would say, am I fulfilled?
Hmm.
Because I think those are two different things.
How so? What do you see as the
Well,
distinction?
to me, being happy and being fulfilled are different, because I am fulfilled. I am not happy necessarily every day, because some days it's hard, right? So I might not feel happy, right? I think when I think of happy, and when a lot of people think of happy, it's like la la la, tiptoe through the tulips. But I am fulfilled because I am challenged. I am challenging myself. And this is one of the things I know about myself, is like I go swimming in the ocean most days, right? Because I
Oh,
love year round. I love jumping into the cold water. I love cycle touring. One of my favorite things to do is to cycle up the mountains. I cycled in the French Alps. I cycled the Rockies. I cycled France by myself for a month, 1 year. And so I love a challenge. I love, part of the reason why I have my own business is I love to challenge myself. And so, yeah, I think that to me, fulfillment comes from, well, it's actually the definition of life work integrity, which is a state of alignment. My coaching program is called the Life Work Integrity Coaching Program. So it's a state of alignment between who you are, what you do in all areas of your life and work, and a world where everyone thrives. And so I don't think being happy, I can be happy if I go on lots of vacations, but I may not necessarily be fulfilled, right? And a big piece of fulfillment is whether or not we're adding value to the world. So I think that's probably the second question. First question is, am I fulfilled? Second question is, am I really, adding value to the world? How am I doing it? Am I doing it in a way that is fulfilling? So that kind of links together. And then if we're talking about people in midlife in particular, I guess the other question is really, do I know what to do to get there? Because that's one of the biggest things I hear is people know they need to do something different, but they don't know how to get there. And it's not rocket science, and it takes time, and you need the support along the way, because even back in the Life Path workshop days, I did what I do in a weekend workshop. And so people would have these big epiphanies. We've all been to those, post-workshop high, yay, big epiphany, my life is going to change. But it doesn't, right? And so then a big piece of it is to say, how am I going to follow through this? And it's not that we don't have the motivation or that people are lazy or that it takes willpower. It's because when you start walking a different path, you take a few steps, and where you thought you were going, where it was really clear, suddenly it's not so clear anymore because you've got more information and you need to go in another direction. I equate it to, it's like walking through a desert with sand dunes, and you see an oasis off in the distance, and you go, okay, water, I'm heading towards the oasis. And you go down and you can't see the oasis. And you come up and you see it, but oh, now it's over there. And you go down and you go up. And so you lose sight of it. It gets murky. You go up and you retarget and you refocus. And then at a certain point, you realize that oasis was a mirage. And oh, there's a city over there. That's where I need to go. And so that's where I find that, one of my clients I've worked with for 20 years. I met her when I lived in Japan, and we started working together, and she keeps coming back to work with me every time she's got a major transition point in her life. And it's that, is this really a mirage over here? Is that really a real city? Do I really want to take that chance to make that risk? So that's the other piece is, who's companioning you on that journey? And ultimately, my goal is to help people companion themselves on the journey. I have people who I worked with years ago who say, oh yeah, I took out my binder from the Life Path workshop, 30 years ago. And, I go back to it and they refer to it. So it's not rocket science. And ultimately you learn to companion yourself.
Wow, that's a great metaphor. Scary, but a great metaphor, right? Like I keep thinking, as long as I'm going to keep doing what I do, as long as three conditions are met. First of all, it's meaningful to me, which I think ties into what you're saying. It's relevant to other people, meaning hopefully they'll pay me for it. And the third is that I'm having fun. And as long as those three things are there, I'm going for it. I've been telling my clients, you can count on me until 2040, but after that, you're going to have to book ahead, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that's hard, right? It's the difference between going, what am I good at, like really good at, versus, what do I really what am I really having fun? It's hard to let go of that. Even now, when I look at, I still love working with organizations and workplaces and culture and developing leaders. And that's a big part of it. And I still love it. And when I'm really being honest with myself, part of the reason why I'm opening up more space in my calendar to focus on women who are basically, where in the stage I'm at in life, it's because my heart breaks when I hear their stories, when I help them in a conversation to have a conversation with their boss to unlock that. It could be the smallest thing that unlocks something big for them, and it just
Mm.
opens up so much change in their life. I just feel so alive. And it's not that it's just it's hard to even describe the difference, but I think you're nodding. I think you understand it. There's the stuff that you enjoy that used to have that feeling, and you're really good at it. But I think it's because we always need that next challenge. Our potential is always calling us forward.
Well, and quite frankly, that's why at my tender age, I decided to launch a new website and launch this podcast. It's like, what the heck? It's just let's see what happens. Let's go for it. And quite frankly, I think that any of your clients would be very very fortunate to have you helping them move through this, Andrea, for sure.
Oh, thanks, David.
And I hope sometime, because they're both in the same city, we could actually get together with a coffee with your husband so he can see that there's other people that are like you in the world.
and men too.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think he believes that there are men like me that are
there's at least one,
weird passions.
There's one that's close, not exactly the same, of course, but Andrea, thank you so much. This has been great. I could have carried this conversation on for hours, and hopefully one time I'll have an opportunity to do that. So
yeah, let's do it. If you're ever downtown,
sometimes I go across the bridge. But thank you so much, Andrea, Jacques, for meeting with me today and having this great conversation. And I hope those that are listening had a couple of tips or hints of things that they can think about as they go through their day. And this, once again, is David Gouthro with Discover Fresh Perspectives.
Awesome.
Subscribe now, because on Fresh Perspectives, every episode is an opportunity to explore new horizons and redefine what's achievable.